Welcome back into the Percussive Art Society Georgia chapter interview series. Hopefully most of you have been along the journey the whole way. You've got to meet all the cool people I've talked to. We're still talking to some more. Before we dive in, I always want to remind you, if you're not active in PAS, please consider joining or reactivating your membership. Once the world opens up again and we're able to do things like Day of Percussion and events like that, that goes toward helping those events happen. So join PAS. It's a cool family, a lot of stuff going on. Our guest today he's been all over the place. Most of you probably know him already from PAS in general. He's currently the professor at Point University. We have Mr. Teddy Hall Jr. How are you today?
I'm doing fine, Andrew. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Ready to chat and hear a little bit more about your story. So with that, I'm just going to go ahead and open the door and let you talk. Just tell us a little bit about how you got started, if there were any maybe like teachers along the way that inspired you, and then through your schooling and maybe those first couple of gigs.
Sure thing. Well, I'm originally from Birmingham, Alabama. Grew up watching my cousins play in church, and that's what influenced me to, you know, have an interest in pursuing music. So I was in elementary music, general music in elementary school, and then fourth grade got in the band. I was at a private school, St. Mary's Catholic School in Fairfield, Alabama, and went to high school at Midfield High School. And uh, upon leaving high school, I was pretty decent with mathematics and engineering. So I decided to pursue electrical engineering at Tuskegee University. I was in marching band and the wind ensemble and the jazz band there. But when I got to circuits and engineering calculus, I said, wait a minute, this is not me. And the director of band at the time, he's retired now, Mr. Warren Duncan, who's a graduate of Florida University, and I always admired him. And he encouraged me to consider Florida University. So I auditioned and I transferred there and loved it. Was in the Marching 100, Percussion Ensemble, Jazz Band 2, wind ensemble, symphonic band, played with the flute choir, played with my teacher, Dr. Sheila James, and the Big Band Community Orchestra, and had a successful year there. The only thing was, financially, I didn't receive a lot of scholarship money for being out of state, so I decided to return back home and work part-time and gig part-time, and I finished at UAB under Eric Hollenbeck. And after that, received a job opportunity to teach middle school band in Memphis, Tennessee. So I did that and taught private lessons in the community. And from talking to Chris PQ and other directors at Overton High School in Memphis, I found out about the University of Mississippi graduate music program, and Ricky Burkhead, who is the only African-American professor in the music department there. And I contacted Professor Burkhead, and we just gelled quickly. And I took a drive down to Oxford and met with him and played for him. And he just opened my eyes to just this world of percussion. And so I got a graduate assistantship there, working with the orchestra and teaching non-percussion majors in the percussion studio, and I was also the university timpanist for the orchestra. And from there, I got a chance to play with the Corinth Symphony, play with the Bountiful Blessings Orchestra at Temple of Deliverance Church of God in Christ, where Bishop G. Patterson was pastor at the time before he passed away in Memphis, Tennessee. And just really gleaned a lot from studying with Professor Burkhead, and from studying with him, we made it an annual thing to attend PASIC together. We started out in Dallas in 2000, and every year I attended as his graduate student. I got to meet his teacher, Johnny Lee Lane, and Ndugu Chancellor, drummers for James Brown, Sonny Emery, and Tito Puente, Sheila E., Terry Lynn Carrington, man, Clayton Cameron. It's just so many people that just opened up my world to everything. But most importantly, it made me realize, you know, what the benefits of being involved in the Percussive Arts Society are all about. My last 2 years of grad school that I went, I worked on the logistics team to help kind of fund my way to the convention and the conference. And I got to work behind the scenes, seeing how they set up for the conference and working with the artists and understanding the methodology behind what was going on, and getting to work with artists, setting up gear, sleeping stuff, so forth and so on. So invaluable experience. And right before graduating from Ole Miss, I got a call from one of Mr. Burkhead's colleagues who was leaving Hampton University to ask if he had any students who was ready. So that was my first gig, teaching at Hampton University as a director and percussion instructor in Hampton, Virginia. And I was there for 2 years. And then upon the end of my second year, I received a call from Professor Burkhead telling me about 2 opportunities opening up down south if I wanted to come back home. So I thought about it. I said, well, I could be back close to my family. And so, long story short, I received an opportunity as on a temporary contract to teach for 2 years at Tennessee State University in Nashville as assistant band director and instructor of percussion. And after that contract ended, I decided to take some more graduate courses at the University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa. Got a job in the school system there and continued to teach adjunct at several HBCUs as time permitted. And from doing that, that led to my next full-time gig at Alabama State University in Montgomery as instructor of percussion. My classmate from University of Alabama decided to move on for another opportunity and called me while I was still in Tuscaloosa. And I said, sure, I would come. And so that's how that happened. And also during the same time, Neil Flom and I had coffee together back in Mountain Brook, Alabama, at a coffee shop. And he encouraged me to explore and write about African-American experience in the orchestral world. So I started calling people, contacting people. I'd already written an article on Richard Johnson, who's the first African-American professor at Indiana University and was their first percussion teacher. And so we kind of tied those things together, my colleague Joe W. Moore III and I. And after that, from interviewing Tim Adams at University of Georgia, he said, well, if you still like to study with me, there's a opportunity coming open in Rockdale County School System, and you could, apply for that if you got it, still study with me independently. So I did. It worked out. And upon moving to Georgia and studying with him, I said, man, I really do miss teaching in higher ed. So after a year there, and Tim and I talking about it, an opportunity presented itself here at Point University in West Point, Georgia. And so this is how, this is where I am now. So that's kind of my journey in a nutshell.
That is a very full story. There's a couple of things I want to pull out of there. I hadn't planned to ask them, but as you mentioned them, I thought this would be a cool thing to talk about. Two of them are kind of small, and the third one's going to segue us into some of our other talk. The first one, because I don't think I've talked to anybody else who had this experience, I almost went to school for electrical engineering.
Wow.
And I think, it was kind of that senior year. I was about to take the audition for the music school, and I was talking to my parents, and, they're excited. Parents, when they think you're going to be an electrical engineer, they're like, go for it. Mm-hmm. And then last minute, I'm like, well, what do you think about me doing music? But anyway, do you find that having that maybe propensity for math and engineering, does that inform your playing and your teaching at all? Or do you feel like that's a totally separate part of your brain?
Yes, the analytical side and being able to problem solve and look at things, it does, because it helps me even when I'm looking at music, looking for patterns, analyzing during score study, or even when I'm looking at literature for myself or teaching a student. Those same types of skills are transferable. And of course, math, we use it all the time, especially with counting and interpretation. So yes, I do find that they're interrelated. It just depends on how you use it. But again, I say those are transferable skills.
Totally agree. I always try to preach to some of my younger students, like, don't just engross in music. There's other skills you need. And I think math is just one of those things. It kind of brings some things in your brain. So it's kind of cool that you took that thing that you were going down that path, and you kind of brought the best side of it back
Right,
into music.
right, right,
Um,
right.
Now, the second thing I wanted to ask, this one might be a little more relevant. Since you've moved around to so many different states, so many different schools, do you find more similarities in different places, or do you find that everywhere you go, you kind of have to realign how you're teaching and playing?
I've learned to be adaptable and um, inflexible. That's the word I was looking for. When I left Ole Miss, um, I was in a dream situation. I mean, it just loved it. Loved my teacher. I cannot say enough about Ricky Burkhead and what he helped me to evolve in. But the challenge that I found when I left there was realizing that because I had been up here, I had to meet the students where they were. And that same passion and drive that I had for what I wanted to do, I had to realize, okay, every student does not want to be like you. So I had to filter that and I had to make that adaptable to the students and the clientele that I was dealing with. And so every situation was different. I had students who came in and they were just ready to go. And I had some students that may have had some challenges, whether it was a learning challenge or, just not sure about, they're just doing it just because they just like to do it, but they're not serious. So I've had to modify my approach uh, to teaching in every situation. And I think that's what has afforded me the opportunity to receive so many teaching and performing opportunities is because I haven't just been in one particular situation, but I've had several situations where everyone was different, but I knew how to adapt and how to be successful. And I think that's key in teaching, not just to go to school and get the education. No, I don't have a completed doctorate, but where I don't have that, I have the experience for that. And I hear it from Professor Adams all the time. He said, he would often tell me, for someone who doesn't have a completed doctorate degree, you think on the level of some of the students that I have, and he's always telling me that I'm encouraging and pushing him just because I have such a passion for pedagogy and performance. So, just to answer that in a nutshell, I do believe that if you're going to be successful, you have to look at the students that you have, they're your customers, and you have to ask yourself, okay, what do they need and how can I best meet their need? And, move yourself out of the way and truly embrace the students that are before you.
What a valuable lesson. That should be in a book somewhere.
Thank you.
And I think actually that, to me, that's a big part of why you've been a part of so many of the different schools. You're also endorsed by several great companies, and I know for a fact that those don't just fall into your lap. You completely deserve those.
Thank you.
And the next big thing I want to talk about is you're very active with the Percussive Arts Society. I think the three big
Yes.
things you have right now is you've just got elected to the Board of Advisors for 2021. Congratulations. Very exciting.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
you've been part of the Diversity Alliance. Anybody who's watching this, if you haven't
Yes.
seen it, go back and watch those videos from, I believe it was last summer, maybe June or July, or maybe earlier.
Right. Yes. Yes.
Awesome,
Yes.
awesome videos. Everybody in there, absolute studs. And then also the University Pedagogy Committee. So if you could, I know it's
Hmm.
probably a lot to open up and dissect, but can you talk about kind of getting into those committees and the board? Like how has your involvement and engagement in the PAS kind of changed over the last few years?
Well, initially, I learned about PAS through Dr. Sheila James at Florida A&M University when I was there. And then coming to UAB as a student under Eric Hollenbeck, he continued to encourage us to join, and he was happy to know that I was already a member when I transferred there. And then going meeting Professor Burke's teacher, Johnny Lee Lane, who actually was on the board of directors at that time, because the way the organization is structured now was different then. Same thing. I would say I first got involved in the leadership position um, on the University Pedagogy Committee at the encouragement of three people. Those were Neil Flom, who's retired from the University of Alabama as marching percussion coordinator, Tim Feeney, who's a former professor there, and Jason Baker. The one thing that Feeney encouraged me to do, and he said, always let the organization be first. Don't use the organization. So in other words, even though I serve in these on these capacities and these leadership roles, I'm doing it for the sake of serving, not for the sake of putting on my CV or my resume, even though that may be a byproduct of that. But he always cautioned me about that because so many people would do that. And I always promised that no matter how high I was able to ascend within the organization, I always wanted to make sure I reminded myself why I joined and the purpose behind it. And from being in Tuscaloosa and going over visiting uh, Jason Baker in Starkville, Mississippi, at Mississippi State, and hanging out with him, helping him with uh, judging marching percussion auditions. We developed a good friendship. And I found out that he was the chair of the pedagogy committee. So I told him I was interested in applying because I really liked what I saw at Mississippi State, even though that's quote unquote our rival school from Ole Miss. And we just kid about that. We laugh about that all the time. But I really admire Jason Baker because of him being a great pedagogue and performer. And we always would talk about pedagogy and just kind of little secrets of the trade. And I also someone else I must mention that influenced me greatly, Paul Byer. I would often consult him and talk to him for, leadership secrets and stuff that from meeting Jason, got involved in the pedagogy committee, and then found out about the Diversity Alliance. Julie Hill, Heather Sloan, Elizabeth Delameter were on board with that, so I joined. And from my involvement in that, I was asked to be over the subcommittee, the African American Diversity Subcommittee. Well, because of getting the initiatives going based on the events that happened in society last year with police brutality, a lot of social injustices going on, the organization wanted to respond in a positive way to let particularly the African American community know that they stood by us and that Black Lives Matter. And from that work and that engagement, I was nominated to serve on the board of advisors. I was voted in, and it was an honor to do that. And I can't say enough how grateful I am about that. The board of advisors serves in an advisory capacity to the board of directors, and as well as just helping out as needed. And while all three of those different leadership roles, board of advisors, University Pedagogy Committee, and University Alliance, all have different roles, they all work intertwined with each other. But again, sometimes it's like, man, I got to make sure I'm balancing out the time to be committed so I'm not just there in name only. But I do enjoy serving and getting a chance to learn a lot and to communicate and dialogue with people of different backgrounds and ethnicities and similar stories, because at the end of the day, it's about the common good, about what can be done to push percussion in a positive light and use it as a vehicle for raising awareness of community in society, but also just helping people to feel good about what they're doing and to just, use it as a means for something positive and not something negative.
What a great story, and being genuine. I think everything you talked about, it comes down to being who you are, and
Yeah.
I think it's not only has it manifested itself in you being able to be in positions where you can help, but I
Right,
think having you, because you were the moderator for those Diversity Alliance
right,
videos,
right,
and I think
right,
it's one of those things. If you have the wrong person doing that job, it can feel like a promotional, almost like a look at us, but like you mean it 100%. Everybody else on that alliance,
right.
the committee, it's 100% real. So I think, yeah, it's been a great asset for PAS last year. And with, I know in at least Georgia, with between you, Mr. Adams, and then Dr.
Yes,
Baxter, because she's also
yes,
on that alliance, it's just been so cool to
right,
see so much of that kind of at home,
right.
spreading out. So very cool job. Again, congratulations on all that stuff. Very well
Thank
deserved.
I
Um,
appreciate that. Thank you. It means a lot.
and I only hope that we will see more of you. as
Yeah.
all the PS stuff goes. And fingers crossed, if PASIC 2021 is in person, maybe
Right. Right.
maybe people can run into you there, shake your hand, all that kind of good stuff, or maybe a
Right.
fist bump this year.
Yeah. Yeah.
So kind of a sidestep from some of that, because I think those are
Mhm.
the big things. A lot of times, especially younger musicians, younger drummers, they want to know, how do I get involved either in something in like that capacity or with a company?
Mhm.
Because I mentioned earlier you're endorsed. I believe you've got Pearl Adams, Vic Firth,
Mhm.
Zildjian,
Mhm.
Mike Balter.
Mhm. Mhm.
Am I leaving one out?
Remo.
Remo, there we go.
Remo.
So, of course, all fantastic companies that allow you probably to do a lot of cool stuff. Can you just share a little bit, like if there was any stories about getting involved with those companies where maybe it was a great artist rep you ran into, or you did a certain event and it led to that, just to let the people know at home that, first of all, it's not just, you don't just get endorsed and get free gear. There has to
Right.
be a reason for it.
Right.
And to me, it's also about the people skills. So maybe any or all of the stories that you want to share with that.
Well, at the time, it was 2004, I believe, when I attended that particular PASIC convention, and I was at Hampton University, and I just went around and talked to Neil Larrabee at Vic Firth. I actually started with Sabian before I got on board with Zildjian, and Nick Petrella was the one I met at Sabian, and Mike Balter was still making his mallet. So, and then met Bruce Jacoby through Johnny Lane. But the thing was, because all of them knew Johnny Lane and Ricky Burkhead as my, teacher and quote unquote Johnny Lane's grand student, uh, I had a good reputation. And I just talked to them and I said, hey, I'm teaching at an HBCU. A lot of the students I have um, don't have a lot. We're trying to expose them to better things and help them to be on a level playing field. And that's how I got started. And because of my genuine interest to help students, that's when I was contacted and say, hey, we would like to bring you on our educational team. And from there, I did the fundamental session for the Virginia DC chapter of PAS while up at Hampton, Virginia. And I was also recommended for Hampton University being the next site to host the Day of Percussion for that chapter, just because of, working with those colleagues. Bill Rice was percussion professor at JMU, James Madison University at that time, and great friend. And Marlon, I forget his last name, was one of the adjunct professors there. So it was just nice to work with those people. But just from doing clinics and helped a friend of mine who has a phenomenal private percussion school, the Freestyle Percussion Foundation back home in Birmingham, Alabama, Chris Seltzer. Pearl sent some things down for them, and then Marcus Pope, who runs Pope School of Percussion in Huntsville, Alabama. He has his Back to Basics camp every August, and because of my involvement there, Pearl sponsored me, and so they offered me in a position as an educational rep. And so just being actively involved and wanting to help students in the community and not just in the classroom per se, as well as performing in different venues, that's what helped to solidify some endorsement opportunities, and also to get supported through doing clinics and so forth and so on.
Very cool. And do you feel that I know obviously the people that you teach with and perform with, they kind of become like our second families once you perform and you've been active with somebody before. Do you feel
Mhm.
that same thing with the people at the companies, or is it like a
Yes,
different relationship?
it's a genuine relationship. Of course, you have your protocol and procedures, and you agree to promote their product, which I have no problem with, because if I didn't, I wouldn't have engaged or initiated that conversation to begin with. But what I can say, there's a genuineness. Kevin Geis and oh man, his name forgets Sean Sean LaFrance at Pearl. I just can't say enough about working with them. Neil Larrabee, Well, he's no longer at Big Fur, but always positive. But Joe Testa, Brian Starkart, who are currently there now, great to work with. Mike Balter up until his retirement, always. You call him anytime. He say, sure, here it is. And Bruce and Mark, everybody that was out at Remo. I mean, you just feel like family. And I can even say the same thing with Nick Petrella. It's like every time we had a PASIC and you have you know, invites to the friends and family gatherings during the convention, you get to find out about new products and everything. So it was always an honor to meet other people. So you didn't feel isolated or alone. And that's the thing, but people can tell when you're genuine or when you're just there to see what you can get out of it. And that's the thing I can say about all of the um, the artists in the company. Even when we would have DCI, you know, just maybe getting a complimentary ticket to the regional Southeast regional show here in Atlanta every now and again. It was always something to just let you know, hey, we know what you're doing. We see you. We think about you. And so for that, I'm grateful to have those relationships, and I don't take them for granted. And I would tell anybody, if you want an endorsement or you're seeking one, you need to ask yourself why and what do you want to give, and not look at what you're going to get.
That's too cool to hear, all of that. And I agree. It's funny. I've had talks with, I guess, younger people, my age, whatever,
Mhm.
about, you know, when you're going for endorsement, that first question they want to know is why, you know, what do
Mhm.
you bring to the table? But it is cool to
Right,
know. I think honestly, any big company, Pearl, Tama, Ludwig, Zildjian, Sabian, Vickforth, they all make good gear. Everybody makes great gear.
right,
But then it's like, okay,
right.
well, who do
That's
you
right.
connect with? Who's your family? You know,
Right,
who's the one that when you
right.
see him at PASIC for the first time in 5 years, they give you a big bear hug and say, let's go to dinner. Like,
That's right.
who is that?
That's right.
And to kind of piggyback, you're talking about Mike Balter. I just remember him very fondly from my first PASIC, which was 2010. My percussion
Mhm.
professor was a Mike Balter artist. And when I graduated, because of my teacher, he made me a pair of custom mallets. It was basically the mallets that I
Oh
like to
wow.
play with my school
Mhm.
color wrap. And he just
Mhm.
said, here, you know, congratulations. I
Oh
wasn't
wow.
anybody, but that's just Mike Balter, man. He's just
Right,
a, you know, and I think almost every company has somebody like that where it's like, yeah,
right.
there's a, again, just like you, there's a reason you're in your position. It's
That's right.
not because of any accolades. It's just you got to be a good hang.
That's right. That's right.
Cool. So a couple of just more little things, and then we'll probably wrap up in a minute. The first thing, we've talked a lot about your teaching life, pedagogy, all that kind of good stuff, which I know is very important.
Yes.
But I'd love to hear a little bit about performing. What maybe if there's maybe not a favorite instrument, it's like somebody, you know, saying their favorite kid, but like maybe an instrument that you like to play on the most, or your favorite opportunities, and then just some of what you've been up to lately, pre-COVID.
Well, it's funny you should say that because I do miss performing. I was performing, rehearsing and performing with the Cobb Wind Symphony under the direction of Alfred Watkins. I've also been involved with the West Side Community Winds and Jazz Orchestra a couple of years ago under the direction of Asa Walker, uh, which has been based out of Douglasville, Georgia. And also, I have mentored and helped perform with the Atlanta Music Project, which is right in Atlanta, Georgia. Phenomenal organization that serves a lot of underprivileged youth in the cities of Atlanta and surrounding communities. But that's what I've been involved with here in Georgia. Before that, uh, played with the Montgomery Symphony while teaching at Alabama State, and then in Tuscaloosa while I was down there, I played with the Tuscaloosa Community Heritage Chorale, playing drum set, and played drum set with the Tuscaloosa Community Big Band. Um, Man, if I went back, I've always been involved with playing with a church music ministry. Um, I'm just trying to think. It's just a lot to to kind of think. But as far as favorite, oh, well, I play with the UAB community. I had to think about it. The UAB community wins, and especially in the summertime, every 4th of July concert, probably for 5 years, I would go home during the summer and play with UAB summer wind wind band for the 4th of July concert. So I always look forward to playing that. Gene Fambro and I, a good friend who's professor, uh, came after Eric Hollenbeck over at UAB. But I like playing timpani and I like playing drum set. I really enjoy playing steel pans at Ole Miss. Another thing that kind of lured me down there because I never played steel pans, and just the whole world and Professor Burkhead's approach to not only teaching the instrument but just the history about the instrument and it coming over here to the U.S. So in African drumming. But those are my favorite instruments, and of course I like snare drum more so contemporary concert snare drum. Just learning how to use the instrument in the traditional rudimental style, the Pratt solos, Wilcoxon solos. But on any given day, I enjoy playing timpani, and like I said, I enjoy playing drum set.
I dig it. I have to agree. And it kind of makes my heart happy to know when there's somebody like you who does kind of both sides of the world. I feel like in the percussion and drumming world, there's a weird division sometimes between drummers and percussionists. And I think both sides
Yes.
benefit. Like a percussionist who can play drum set and hold down a groove is a better percussionist. And a drummer who learns maybe some of the nuance and stuff of percussion is a better
Hmm.
drummer. So I think, yeah, and you can kind of tell if you watch a percussionist and they
Right.
got a little head bob maybe going on when they're playing
Right.
their tambourine
Right.
excerpt, like, oh, he
Right.
must be a drummer too. So,
Right. Right. Right.
so final thing that, and then we'll kind of wrap up here
Mhm.
because a big reason why we're doing this interview series is because of all the COVID and the quarantine. Everybody's been kind of at home
Yeah.
for a while. I would love to hear if there's maybe one big positive that you found over the last 8 months to a year, whatever it's been,
Hmm.
from either working from home or just anything in general that you feel a positive side of this.
Well, yeah, things have slowed down, which has been a good thing because it's given me a chance to um, do more self care for me. Because I think one thing you have to be careful of when you're constantly pouring, if you don't pour back into yourself, it will deplete you. In my current employer, Point University, we started off with a hybrid scheduling. The thing I like about Point is the flexibility. It's a small liberal arts Christian university down in West Point, Georgia, off of I-85. And we don't have that many students here on campus. We probably have more students online. And it's very intimate. We offer 3 degrees, Bachelor of Music and Church Music, music recording and performance. In fall of 22, we'll start offering the Bachelor of Music and Music Education. And I have a small percussion studio. I teach students from the drum line who are non-majors, as well as I have had 4, but 1 graduated, so 3 majors, but also, like I said, teaching non-majors. And this past year, I worked with the front ensemble and the marching battery as well. We still met as an ensemble outside, although we didn't do too much performing outside of just the regular um, rehearsals and maybe a couple of guest performances at some of the local high schools. But the football schedule was postponed until further notice. But I've learned how to just really restructure teaching, what works, what doesn't work. It's given me a chance to rethink some things, and especially now with this virus continuing to go on. But I think the main thing is just using technology, not just being so much stuck in the traditional role of brick and mortar or just the classroom, but understanding how to incorporate technology and how to, teach lessons via Zoom or WebEx or Google Classroom. And it just kind of made you embrace technology even more just because of the fact this is probably going to be our new normal. I know a lot of people say, well, when we get back to it, and I'm like, well, this is where we are. I don't see much changing. I think this is going to become a part of the normal, and it's just made me really reinvent some things. I uh, did a promotional video for Pearl not too long ago for the Vector Philharmonic snare drum, concert snare drum. And just from doing that, I said, well, I need to do some more videos that'll be appropriate for maybe a beginner, intermediate student, advanced student. And it just kind of um, just opened my mind up to trying to do some other things that probably had this um, pandemic not occurred, when you're just constantly doing the same thing over and over, and then you get a chance to slow down and really rethink some things, it just kind of starts the creativity and the innovation to flowing. So that's the main thing I was saying, becoming more familiar with technology, discovering new ways to use it, and also being able to connect with students differently. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I don't miss the traditional classroom, because I mean, I do. But at the same time, I think it's good to stay flexible and open to see how you can, you know, take advantage of the opportunities you have. And then at the same time, it gives you a chance to just kind of slow down and breathe a little bit rather than always just being on all the time. And because of Zoom, just getting a chance to connect with people more often or meet with people, I think this Zoom technology should take the place of those long and boring, I hate to say it, but unnecessary faculty meetings all the time. Because with Zoom, you meet with everybody, you do it 30 minutes or whatever, and you're done. And you're not just sitting there just going on and on and on, because after so long, you're going to lose people anyway. I think you really have to look at people's attention span. So, I mean, it's a lot of positives, I think, because of it.
I completely agree with that. I think a lot of us, we kind of get into our little hamster wheel and we start running in a
Yeah,
circle.
yeah,
And it takes that, the wheel kind of has to fall off the hinge and you go, oh, what's that thing over there? So,
right,
yeah, and
right.
about the Zoom too. I mean, it's amazing what a great tool it is. We've had some technology like this for years, but
Mhm.
we never thought about it because it's like, oh, we'll schedule a meeting. I'll see you here at this day at this time in this
Right,
building.
right.
So yeah, I'm keeping my fingers crossed that even if we did return to a quote unquote old normal, this
Mhm.
stuff will stay. The technology will all still use
Right. That's right.
interface, computer, all that kind of good stuff. So
That's
very
right.
cool. Thank you for sharing all that. That's a
You're
lot
very
of
welcome.
positive. It wasn't just like the one little thing. It's like, yeah, look at all this good stuff.
Right. That's right.
So well, cool. We're gonna go ahead and wrap it up here. I really appreciate you taking time to chat
Thank you.
today. Um,
Sure.
I'm I'm excited to share this and for have. I think a lot of people in Georgia probably know you already, but for any of the people who maybe aren't as connected, I think it's
Right.
great to know that you're here. You're part of the.
Well,
I feel like we just won the NBA draft. We got Teddy Hall in Georgia.
well, I'm happy to be here and happy to do whatever I can to help. I've been blessed to have a wonderful start of my career, and probably where I am now is just trying to be in more of a mentor role to help those who are interested in doing what I'm doing coming behind me, and just to pass off what I've learned and to continue the good fight for diversity, equality, or equity, rather, and inclusion, because we still have those battles, not just in society, but even on the teaching field and performance field.
Awesome. I think that's a great place to wrap up. That was a beautiful ending to the interview. So
Thank you.
I will remind everybody once again, if you're not part of PAS, consider joining. Think about all the cool things that you
Yes,
could be doing, just like Mr. Teddy Hall
yes.
here. So
Thank you.
I'll have
Thank
links
you.
to that. Oh, I do want to mention, I almost forgot about this. There is an interview that I believe you did as for a podcast, maybe in 2019, 2018 or 2019. I'm blank on the name of it. It's about a 2-hour interview. I'm going to include a link to that here because you've got a lot of really
Oh,
cool stories
with
there.
Pete Zambito, Pete's
Yes.
podcast. Yes,
Yes. I'm
Pete's
going to
Percussion podcast.
There we go. Yeah, I was listening to that just the other day, and a lot of cool stuff there. You elaborated on a couple of the stories that you kind of hinted at here, so I think that'll be.
Right.
I'll link it so people after this go check out whatever's down below the
Yes.
video here, and then I'll have links to any of your sites, to the PAS page board of advisors. Kind of there's a pretty good write up on you there, so people can find out
Yes.
some more stuff.
Right.
And then of course, we're all here on Facebook, YouTube, whatever land, so we'll
Yeah.
all run into each other somewhere.
That's right. That's right.
Thank you again for the time. Thank you
Thank you,
again to
Andrew.
our viewers for being a part of this, and we've had a lot of good feedback. People are enjoying meeting everybody, so we're gonna keep it going as long as we can. But
That's
until then, everybody stay safe, keep practicing, and we'll all see you again soon.
all right. Take care.